rather than talking about happiness, I'm going to give you a crash course in the future. My friends at Mind the Bridge are doing a great job of showing you today's Silicon Valley, and I'm sure you're amazed by what's happening here. What's next is even more amazing, more scary, more incredible, and Europe is completely behind the times. You folks are clueless about what's happening here. Let's start with the journey. This is the history of technology. It took thousands of years to go from agriculture to pottery to the plow to mathematics. Things moved very slowly. Over the last 100 years, we've had advance after advance after advance. We don't seem to understand exponential. This is an exponential curve. I'm going to illustrate what these things mean with a simple chart. This is Ray Kurzweil's chart, which shows you what you get for $1,000 in your computing devices. In 2010, for $1,000, you got the computing power of a mouse brain. With Moore's Law, and Moore's Law is still continuing more or less for the next few years, and then new paradigms coming about. By 2023, for $1,000, you get the same computing power as a human being. What did I just say? The iPhone 13 or the iPhone 14 will have the same computing power that your brains do. By 2050, this device has the same computing power as every human being on this planet. This is how technology is progressing. And it isn't just computing. It is everything that computing touches: AI, robotics, networks, sensors, virtual reality, nanotechnology, synthetic biology. Everything is on this exponential path. I'm going to illustrate a couple of technologies and then walk you through what this means to entire industries. To start with, do you remember Rosie?
Hello. I'd like to rent a maid.
Rosie!
Coming, sir. Here I am, sir. Here it goes.
These are the robots we grew up dreaming about.
Pleasure to meet you.
Right. So when we were young, this is going to be our future. And we grew up, and what did we get? These clowns. This is a DARPA challenge of 2015. Robots couldn't even stand up. So this is what we have experienced through our lifetimes. All these amazing visions, hopes of the future, and then this, nonsense. What happened over here? I'm going to take you to my university, Carnegie Mellon, and show you. This is a leg lab, 20 years of progress. All right. So I'm at Carnegie Mellon University here in Silicon Valley, but over 20 years, you went to having robots that looked like that. And then the founders of Leg Lab from Carnegie Mellon left and started a company called Boston Dynamics. Let's watch their progression. This is 6 years of progress. You've seen these videos, but I'm showing you exponentially what they mean. All right, that's pretty good for 6 years of progress. And then watch what happened over 4 years. These humans can't stop hitting the robots. That'll get fixed. Four years. Watch what happened over 2 years. No one's going to screw with this fellow. All right, and then watch what happened over 1 year. All right, this is exponential advance in technology. So what happened over here? First of all, computing advanced exponentially, and so did AI. And so did voice recognition, text recognition, facial recognition. So we have all these advances happening. And then the sensors and the actuators, they started advancing exponentially. The cameras, all of these things, they got faster, cheaper, and more and more powerful. This is how technology advances exponentially. So move forward 5 years, 7 years. The robots we dreamed about, Rosie version 1.0 will likely be shipped in 2025, and she'll be droned over to your house via Amazon Prime. That is a very, very likely scenario based on the exponential advances. Now look in your pockets. Look at the sensors you have in your pockets. You've got the most advanced accelerometers, gyroscopes, proximity sensors, touch screens, sensors that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and weighed hundreds of pounds just 30 or 40 years ago, still in your pockets. You're not even aware of what they're doing. So when you put a combination of these technologies together, you begin to see the pieces coming together, how technologies advance, they converge, and when they converge, they start wiping out entire industries. Every industry I research, every single industry I've looked at, I see becoming toast in a very short period of time. And this, for entrepreneurs, this means opportunity, because where there's disruption, there's opportunity. This is what I call the Hall of Toast. You remember those vinyl records? Gone. Long distance calling. If you had come here 5 or 7 years ago, you would have gone back with bills in the hundreds of euros for calling back to Europe. Now what does it cost you? Zero. You're on Wi-Fi and you're calling for free. Toast. Bookstores, well, in the toaster. Netflix, Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster? Gone. Taxis, soon to be toast. Classifieds, toast. This is exponential advance. Now let's look at a couple of other industries. Let's look at finance, which you folks have been oohing and eyeing with these ICOs. Forget about ICOs. I see a much more fundamental threat to a $3.3 trillion industry, the credit card industry. Where does the money go? About 3 cents goes to the middleman. Right? You're looking at this through ICOs and crypto. It's much simpler than that. So now you have literally a $3.3 trillion industry. You've had Apple and Google and these companies trying to get their technology working. Apple hasn't been very successful in the USA yet. It has been in the UK and several other countries, but give it 2 or 3 years and they'll figure it out. So now you have, Apple has tricked the credit card industry into working with it, the banks into working with it. What would it take for Apple to disrupt the entire $3.3 trillion industry? Apple Coin. What's Apple Coin? iTunes currency. And bang, you wiped out the entire credit card industry in one hit. Well, when could this happen? 5 years from now. You're talking about impacting a $1 trillion industry. There's no reason why Google couldn't have their own currency. These companies have more money than governments do. Right? So they could secure their own digital currency, which is essentially what they're doing right now. You have iTunes Cash, just like you had mobile cash in Kenya and the developing world, and now China, for example, has a $13 trillion digital economy, a mobile currency economy. That's all it takes to wipe out a $3.3 trillion industry. Communications. We've seen these phone booths disappear. Google a few years ago started talking about fiber. We were wondering, why is Google getting into the fiber business? Because Google wants to own the data. So now you have all of these companies racing to provide internet everywhere. When there was a hurricane in Puerto Rico, Google provided balloons that provided direct internet access to phones. They were able to provide 4G level connectivity directly to phones, replace the cell towers completely. So now you have SpaceX, you have OneWeb, which have billions at their disposal to start blanketing the planet with Wi-Fi, with 5G connectivity. What happens to good old AT&T, Verizon, the European carriers, when suddenly you have Wi-Fi everywhere? To me, it looks like they're going to become toast. What time frame am I talking about? By 2023 or sooner. You're talking about wiping out a multi-trillion-dollar communications industry simply because the tech industry has played the same game it does with everything else. And everyone seems to be worrying more about regulating data without realizing the big picture that these people want it all. The tech industry wants to control the entire infrastructure, data communications all over the world, and this is what they're doing with their microsatellites. It's happening, whether you're ready or not. And then energy. We're obsessed right now with petroleum. We fight world wars over petroleum. America's great president wants to bring beautiful, clean coal back. God bless him, let him have all the coal he wants in the White House. But the fact is that we get 1,400 times more energy every day through sunlight than the entire planet consumes in a year of energy. We're bathed in energy. And what's been happening is that the cost of energy, the cost of solar energy and wind energy has been dropping 15 to 20% a year for the last few years. In fact, it's been dropping more than 10% a year for the last 40 years, to the point that it's, as the installations double, the price drops. As the price drops, the installations double. Europe led the world for a while, and then Europe basically fell asleep. Now you have China and India who are leading the world in the implementation of technologies. So if you look forward now, look exponentially, you see we're less than a dozen years away from being able to generate 100% of the Earth's energy needs through solar. I wrote this piece for the Washington Post in 2014. I was attacked like you won't believe by the fossil fuel industry. They said this guy is crazy, because I talked about the utility industry going bankrupt and utilities lobbying to stop clean energy, which is exactly what's happening right now. So what their comeback to me was that we can't have unlimited clean energy because you still need to store energy, and storage is extremely expensive. Yeah, I know that. So what's also happening in storage is that the price is dropping exponentially on the same curve as solar and wind. So if you move forward 5, 7 years, solar storage cost 40% of what they do today, 30% of what they do today. The entire economics shift. You now have microgrids. By 2025, we'll have self-driving electric cars on our roads that cost about a third less than their fossil fuel competitors. And suddenly you're talking about a revolution faster than anyone could have imagined. You're talking about wiping out an automotive industry, as well as energy industry, as well as the beautiful coal and gas industries that we're obsessed with. Europe is still laying pipelines and debating where it's going to get energy from. I don't know why the politicians there, the business leaders, the academics can't simply look at the trajectory and put 1 and 1 together and realize that when it's exponential, 1 and plus 1 equals 11. This is what's happening. In America, it's ugly here, because we're talking about taking healthcare away from millions of people. Why? Because the cost of healthcare keeps rising, because it's a crooked, corrupt system. Well, the world isn't waiting for America anymore to solve the healthcare problem, because America won't do it. Startups here in medicine can't get off the ground because of all sorts of regulations and all sorts of concerns about getting sued. So I'm going to take you to India to show you one company that could disrupt America's entire healthcare system. This company called HealthCube. That device over there is the size of an Apple TV. It does the same tests that hospitals do. Everything from blood temperature, hemoglobin, pregnancy, syphilis, HIV, dengue, malaria, 12 lead EKGs, blood sugar, chikungunya, malaria, you name it. The most common tests that you would do in hospitals, this device does. Do you know what it costs? The retail price is $1,000. Do you know what the consumables cost? About 10 to 50 rupees, which is about 20, 30 cents or whatever in euros. That's what this technology costs. And here's what the problem with the system in the US and Europe is. From the time you get sick to the time you make an appointment, go to the doctor and get diagnosed, they have to order blood tests and get them back from the labs. You might as well be dead. It's 2 to 5 days typically. So this company, I'm talking about healthcare. By the way, I joined the board. I invested in it a year and a half ago, and now we're scaling this up globally. But here's what one of the largest families in India, the Birlas, are doing in villages across India. Watch this.
At IDEA, we have evolved the social entrepreneur model, embedding the health cube. We are able to reach out to rural areas, including labor migrants, and offer them a path to proactive wellness. Timely health screening and diagnostics on 32 related tests, including all pathological tests, blood sugar, hemoglobin, blood pressure, and many more issues are diagnosed before they turn into a major illness. We have created an army of village social entrepreneurs who do the health screening at a very nominal cost. We have taken HealthCube to Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh, collectively spanning 20 districts and 100 locations. In all these, we have seen a palpable change, healthier people, fewer illnesses, and a general sense of well-being.
So this technology isn't trying to reinvent medicine. It simply uses off-the-shelf sensors and integrates them into a platform and provides the results immediately. I have HealthCube at home, and I'm able to do my own EKGs as well as my own cholesterol tests, as well as troponin tests, as well as the most common tests I'd have to get done at a hospital. Right now, about 1/3 of a million people in India have access to better healthcare and diagnostics not healthcare, better diagnostics than you do in Europe, because they're able to get tested and get the results immediately on their smartphones. I carry my entire medical history on my phone because I'm able to do tests and get the results immediately on my phone. This is a made in New Delhi technology. So this is now being taken. Bill Gates just ordered a bunch of units to take to Ghana. Bangladesh, they ordered 1,400 units. It's going to be all over Bangladesh over the next year or so. By the end of this year, we would have done 1 million tests on this. By the end of next year, 100 million tests. The goal is to take this all over Latin America next year, with the largest pharma company there is likely to manufacture and distribute it all over Latin America. It'll come to America not through the front door, but through the back door, through Tijuana, through Mexico itself. Because it's legal to do your own testing here, you just can't sell these devices because it's a crooked system. But imagine now if you had all your diagnostics at home, you get on your smartphone and call up a doctor anywhere. The doctor has access to all the diagnostics you need. This is a dream of venture capitalists, of investors, except it's not going to happen in the West. It's coming out of New Delhi. This is how disruption works now. Now, I'm going to conclude with a simple message that every technology can be used for good and it can be used for evil. You know, right now, I see two scenarios. One is Mad Max. The other is Star Trek. I see it possible to create Star Trek 300 years ahead of schedule. I also see the darkness in Washington, D.C. and in Europe. I mean, you look all over Europe right now, the craziness is setting in, whether it be Austria, whether it be Sweden, whether it be Italy, France. It's mindless what's going on over there. It's the same as America, that you have the darkness at the same time as you have the light. So we have some big choices to make here, because we could end up creating an amazing future or screwing it up. The choices are, does the technology have the ability to benefit everyone equally? With HealthCube, when I got involved, I decided not to take it to the VCs here. Because I wrote to Andreessen about it, Vinod Khosla about it. Immediately, they were thinking big dollars. They were thinking about the West. I said, no, this is meant for the developing world. We're going to take it to 1 billion people first before we bring it to the West. After realizing that Silicon Valley just won't get it, we tried to take it to the developing world. So giving it to them at cost. And what are we doing? The deals like with Bangladesh are that they can get it for cost, which is a couple of $100s. In Africa, we're actually licensing it for $10 a month for the device. But the condition is that we own the data. Those countries love that, because what more do people in Bangladesh want than scientists in Palo Alto analyzing their data and coming up with cures to the diseases? Right? It's a win-win. So the strategy is to just give the technology away at cost to the poor, gather all the data, and then benefit the rich eventually. But that's what I have to start thinking about, is how do we benefit the world rather than just the rich? Do the rewards outweigh the risks? And does it lead to autonomy or dependency? This is what this book, Driving the Driverless Car, is about. Now, the book that you have outside is one beyond this. The reason why I talked about this is because you have to understand what technology is making possible, and then the darkness of Silicon Valley and social media and the things you're debating over here, GDPR, data protection. That book is very relevant to some of the discussions you're having about policy, because it explains the game that the tech industry is playing to steal all your data and then to use it against you. That's what that book is all about. All right, so my email is my name, vivek@wadwha.com. My website is wadwha.com. You can read about it and read my books, and good talking to you. Do you want me to do some questions, Marco? All right, then thank you.
All right. Thanks.